Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, as we promised last week, that we'll continue on the same issue, which is the ongoing turmoil in the political arena, and also we'll flash back to the independence of Sudan 67 years ago, and mainly we'll start by commenting or analyzing the speech of General Burhan, Chairman, President of the Supreme Council. And we'll cover different issues concerning what is happening these days in the country and the prospects and the expectations of the analysts, like our guest today in this episode, our friend Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor, as known to most of the viewers, but he is a professor in the University of Khartoum. He used to be the director of the Peace Research Institute, and now he is a member of staff in the University of Khartoum. But what is most important is that he is contributing in the area in which we are really having a problem, area of conflict resolution and peacemaking. This is the area where he has good connections in different parts of the world with different big organizations working on the same field of resolution of conflicts and making peace in the countries which suffering from civil wars and anyhow. Welcome, Professor Manzoor, for being with me in this episode, which I think we believe it will be a very important episode because we'll ask you very good questions.
Thank you very much, Omar. I am glad to be with you.
Okay, Professor, let's start, as we've said. Now we start by the speech delivered by General Burhan on the eve of the Independence Day, the 66th anniversary of the independence of Sudan. General Burhan actually in this speech, he sent many messages in different directions. So I will try to enlist the messages and then see your comment on it. First, one of the messages he said, the first thing is he was a little bit concerned with the hate rhetoric or rhetoric of hate, which is now growing in different parts, especially of the west and east of Sudan. So he's trying to, one of the messages is to condemn this rhetoric and the growing of the hatred between the different parts of the country. The other is about the dialogue. We said people should take it seriously and to address the issues to circumvent or to avoid falling into total collapse. Also, he's talking about unification of the internal front of the country, because now it is in complete disarray. The most important and maybe controversial is the enlargement of the scope or the participants of the framework agreement by including others who are interested or who are about to believe or to accept that's why he is saying that other people should not be sponsors of others, to not speak on behalf of others and forget the others. Also, he ascertained the commitment of the military component to withdraw from the political arena as soon as the country is stable and as soon as general elections were conducted, which gives the legitimacy to the governance. So this is most of the important issues which messages sent in the speech of General Burhan. What is your general comment on this?
Well, I think much of what the leader of the Sudan Council said in his speech on the eve of independence is not really new.
Not new.
No, maybe they only talk about the spread of hate speech. This is something that I think this is the first time I hear him saying this. Yeah. And I think he's right. We see this very clearly in real life and in social media. In real life, we see what's happening in the east, we see what's happening in Darfur, And in social media also we see a lot of hate speech, we see bullying, we see spread of lies. Much of what comes really in social media is not correct. And it contributes to the spread of hate speech. But I think the General Burhan should also be clear to indicate what are the reasons for the spread of hate speech.
Reasons for the hate.
Yeah, exactly, because there are always factors behind this, and he should spell out that instead of simply saying that there is a spread of hate speech. Yes, we know this. This is self-evident, and by virtue of being the number one in charge in this country, he should also indicate what are the causes and what to do about it. I know this is a speech on the occasion of independence, but still it could have been more explicit in this. And this is also linked to the statement that was which he also said a few days after that speech, but that there are some NGOs or civil society organizations that are spreading drugs among the youth. That's also a very serious statement, and without telling the Sudanese people who these NGOs are, I don't think that is useful to say that. This is as far as the hate speech is concerned. Now, with regard to the political development that was
the dialogue, he's talking about the dialogue, a real dialogue, dialogue after the framework.
That is also not clear, because General Burhan was a signatory to the political framework agreement. So instead of calling for these very generalized and vague things, I think what is needed is to make sure that this is something that brings together more people, and I think the army represented by Burhan should play a very significant role in this, because the army is part of the framework agreement by virtue of the fact that General Burhan was a signatory, General Hemeti was signatory, and the others.
So they are part and parcel of.
They are part and parcel of it. So you cannot stay up there and tell people that you have to do this and that, because you are part of that. You have to do. So Burhan has, and I have always said this, that the army represented by Burhan and also Hemeti, they should really play a very positive and proactive role in the political process that's going on, because they are part of it.
They are part of it.
They are part of it. So you signed the framework agreement. Do your best so that this moves forward and that positive things will come out, and also do your best to convince others who are not yet part of it to come and sign it. And I see that Burhan is playing a role, because yesterday there were news in the media that he is trying to bring together FFC1 and the Democratic Bloc people, so that they could bridge the gap, and eventually they will also end up signing the framework agreement. I think this is going to happen at one point, and that is the kind of steps that I am calling for. That we need to move from rhetoric to practical steps that would, take us a step further, because to sign the framework agreement is not enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. So on this, I think the points mentioned by Burhan were good, but I think we need to see actions more than just words.
Okay, let's assume if nothing or most of this he is now calling for dialogue for, if nothing happened, what does this mean?
No, I think things are moving now, because today the FFC1 declared that they will embark on the final stages of the final settlement as of Sunday, this Sunday, 8th of January. I think they will start by addressing the issue of dismantling the structures of the former regime, and also they will be embarking on the work on transitional justice. These are the two key issues that they will start what they call the final stages of the political settlement. So things are moving, and my hope is that others who were sympathetic but not signatories should come and join. And I really don't see any reason why people like Jem and SLM Minnawi are not part of this. It doesn't make any sense because they are part of Juba peace agreement, and Juba peace agreement is part of the political framework agreement anyway. It's there. Maybe there were some details, but I think generally I don't see any reason why they are not part of
it.
Yeah.
Okay, but also let us assume that going in line with this, there is a little, no, it's a big controversy between the different factions. Those the signatories, among the signatories of the framework, the Force of Freedom, Freedom Force, FFC, the Central Council, who signed with the military the framework agreement. Some of them, they started to accept the idea of enlarging the participants to the framework agreement by the inclusion of some others. They believe that those who signed are not enough to reach what you call the critical mass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are others in the FFC1. They are not willing to open the door for others to come. Some of them they clearly stated that we can go without the others. What is your comment on
well,
this?
Yeah, I am. For one thing, I am among those who support the idea of enlarging the base of the political framework agreement, because the more people you have, the better possibility you get for having the agreement succeed. And if there is somebody who accepts the provisions of the political framework agreement, if there is somebody who believes in transition, I really don't see why they are not allowed to be part of that. You see? So there is a possibility, and I think at the end of the day, this is the thing that should happen if we really aspire for a smooth transition. The more people you have on board, the better.
The safer.
Yeah, the better.
Okay, so as an expert in conflict resolution, such a conflict, does it require a majority? You are always calling it the critical mass, the majority, or a consensus to succeed?
Consensus is not gonna happen. That is almost impossible. But you can have consensus is not gonna happen. That is almost impossible. But you can have a mass that is enough to allow you to move forward. Now you have FFC1, you have the military component, you have some others like DUP, Al-Hassan. We are also looking at the possibility of including Jibril and Minnawi. And there are others also. So if you have this, I think this should be a sufficient base for people to move forward and to go for the final political settlement that would allow the formation of a civilian-led government with a prime minister and the other institutions that are needed to have a smooth transition.
Okay. Now, if we go back to the framework agreement itself, the framework agreement itself, it gave a green light for formation of the government and for the proceeding in another transitional period. But the most important articles of this framework agreement are, I think, a little bit sticky and muddy. and this might take time or might not be resolved. Like, for example, dismantling of the relics or the effects of the hostage regime.
Right.
Okay. Second, with the Juba agreement to see some modification or revision to revise Juba agreement. To some people, Juba agreement is the Bible and it cannot be touched. Some people, they state it clearly like this. Issue other than something like reform of the military and intelligence, military component and the intelligence reform, which is something a little bit very sensitive to the military. When they talk about reform, as if they are talking about restructuring the army, and the army they consider this is none of the concern of the civilians. This is another issue. The third is the fourth is the transitional justice. Also, transitional justice, it has pro and cons, and some people they wanted, some they were resisted. The last issue is the east track. So those are very sticky.
Well, I think with regard to the dismantling of the former regime, as I just mentioned, a workshop is going to start on Sunday, on the 8th, to talk about it. And I think what is going to happen is that they will look at the previous experience and the kind of lessons that should be learned from that.
Okay.
Because we all know that the previous experience had a lot of problems. So this one is going to avoid those problems. And I think it was made very clear in the framework agreement that this is going to happen, dismantling the structure of former regime. Now there is an agreement on this. There are no disagreements. Of course, the former regime loyalists would be nervous about it. They will not accept it, but that is not their call. They are not in a position to say no to that. This is one. Two, with regard to the issue of transitional justice, I think this is one of the models that are tested in other countries, and we saw the results in South Africa, in Rwanda. And the logic is that when you have mass atrocities, mass problems, you cannot depend on the criminal justice system to solve these problems. It will take decades.
Yes.
You know, and we all know the story that when the Rwanda people started to address the problems that were brought by the genocide, and when they want to do the model of criminal justice, they did a study, and that study reveals that if they choose to go to criminal justice, it will take them 150 years to look at all the files.
Yeah.
So they chose transitional justice, and you know the details that were there in what they implemented, and they could do that in a relatively short period, and they succeeded. Succeeded, of course. Now we all know Rwanda is now one of the best examples in the continent. So there shouldn't be any real concerns or problems with this, and I think it will happen because this is in the interest of everybody. And I just want to say that sometimes people have a misleading understanding about transitional justice, because some people look at it as a framework that would imply impunity, that would allow people to get away with the crimes. This is not transitional justice. It's about accepting responsibility, about people knowing what happened to their loved ones, about reparations, and about forgiveness. And if people accept these things, that is fine. 3, Juba Peace Agreement.
Yes, Juba Peace Agreement.
I think there is also an understanding that something has got to be done with it, because practically it's not working.
It's not working.
The agreement was signed on October the 3rd, 2020. And now we're into 2023. We are entering the third year.
The third year.
Nothing happened. Not even the security arrangement were implemented fully.
Not implemented.
So if I were part of the signatories, I would call for revision. You know, I wouldn't actually wait, because it's in the interest of the signatories themselves that the agreement should be reviewed. Now, the word review, of course, a lot of people will look at it differently. Some people might be apprehensive that they might lose some of the privileges they got by virtue of signing the agreement, personal privileges. But if people are thinking about those who suffered the civil war, whether in the East or in the Blue Nile or South Carolina or Darfur, they should be open to reviewing the UPP's agreement. And I think this is understanding. For the issue of security sector reform. Now, I know that this is...
Just before we go to this, what about the East track?
Well,
also,
the East, we know that this track created a lot of problems. We all know that, of course. And something has got to be done about that. I remember in the first government of Hamdok, there was a thinking of having an all-Eastern Sudan conference where people would put this issue on table and discuss it. And I still don't see why this is not happening. There should be a big conference for everybody in the Eastern Sudan to come and sit down and debate this. If they decide that we should scrap this, why not? Because you cannot impose something on people which they don't accept.
From the beginning, Professor Manzoor, do you think that the inclusion of the tracks...
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
Because the process was not inclusive.
Yeah.
Only one part.
From the beginning, it was a
mistake. It was a mistake. We have to say this very clearly. And a mistake should be corrected. So there is a possibility of also correcting this, and because this track divided the people in the East. Some people are with it, some people are against it. Some people will say that we have simply to strike it out. Others say no, you cannot do that. Simply, we have to sit down. And I think the way out is to sit down in an inclusive conference that does not exclude anyone in the East. And people, I'm quite sure, will reach a consensus or an agreement at least about what to do with it.
But this should be preceded by practical steps of suspending or revoking this track.
The track is not working anyway.
But
nothing was done.
It is part of the agreement.
Yeah, I know.
So they have to take it first of all. In my opinion, I think they have to take the whole track altogether. I think the others.
No, that's right.
The armed struggle people.
Look, Omar, what really puzzles me is that some people who are against the track are now allying themselves to those who say the agreement is untouchable.
Yes, yes. Why?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, yes. They have vested interests, personal interests.
Exactly. So I think if we think objectively, I think there is always a way out. And to me, I don't see that the problem of Eastern Track cannot be solved. It can be solved.
It can be solved.
It can be solved.
The difference is not big.
No. No. And this is again, as I said, part of the very simple fact that the agreement is not working anyway. Not in Darfur, not in the South Kordofan, not in the East. And if something is not working,
it's not working.
Why are you trying to hold it? Do something about it. And to be very honest with you, and this is my personal opinion, those who refuse looking at the agreement are not objective.
Not objective?
No.
Subjective?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is very bad. Okay, let's move to the other.
And then the last thing I think is security sector reform. This is one of the very critical issues. I know it's very difficult, it's very tough. The military component has always been very apprehensive, very suspicious about it, and they talk, they conceive of it as something that's going to weaken the military and all of that. And for this reason, they say that the civilians has nothing to do with it. I think this is not correct.
The civilians are calling.
No, of course, the civilians have to be part of this. Of course, technically, they are the one who are more competent. They are the one who should do the thing. But of course, in the thinking and designing the whole process, the civilians will have to be part of it. If not now, it will be sometime in the future.
What do they mean by reform? Exactly. What do they have in mind?
Well,
what is wrong with the army structure now?
The army structure now is affected by the legacy of the former regime. The army has been serving a political party. We have to be very clear and honest about this. If you are not a loyalist, you will not be allowed to go to the military college. We have to be very clear about this. We all know this. This has got to stop, you know. And this implies that you need to even to change.
So in essence, it is something like cleansing or taking out
politics from
and ideological.
Precisely. And this
officers.
This would imply changing the curricula in these military colleges, so that when you go there with understanding that you are serving the country, not a political or religious or ideological orientation.
Yes.
This should be the core of the process, and actually the military should be happy about this, because this is going to serve their own interest. To have a strong, professional military that serves the purpose of guarding the country and the constitution, not guarding a political party or religious orientation. That is what I understand by reform.
What about the rapid
support forces?
Are they included in the?
Of course. I think at the end, the agreement calls for unifying the army, which means that the army
have only one national army.
Exactly. The SRF at one point would have to be merged into the Sudan Armed Forces. It's a process. It's going to take time. It's not easy, but I think everything starts with a single step.
But unfortunately, without resolving these issues, we cannot move forward.
No, I think we have to prioritize.
Can be done within.
We have to prioritize. Certain things are priority.
Do you think that these things have to be resolved before forming a government?
No.
It has nothing to do.
No.
Parallel.
Listen, the security sector reform is a long process. It's going to take a long time. It will not be completed during the transition. It will not be completed even after the transition.
It's a long process.
It's a long process. It's going to take a long time, and people have to be patient. People have to be objective, and also understanding of the fact that we are coming out of long years of everything that's terrible, you know. And actually, when I look at it, sometimes I feel that we have very high expectations. People have very high expectations, and they want things to happen quickly, and this is unbecoming. If you take the question of justice, justice takes time, decades. We all followed the court that looked at the assassination of Rafiq al-Hariri, the former Lebanese prime minister. Yeah. It took 17 years.
Yes.
And it's not yet completed. So, because there is a due process, and if you adhere by this legal jargon, due process, it's going to take time.
Do you think those who are in charge now, the military, actually now the incumbent ruling faction is the military, with a government without a head, without a prime minister, which is something absurd and something unacceptable. For more than 16 months, no government, no prime minister. So do you think that this will prolong this abnormal situation?
Of course, you know, the longer it takes, the more complexities we will...
More problems will arise.
Exactly, exactly. More problems will occur, and I think the military leaders are quite clear, and they know that this situation is not sustainable, and that is why they were part of the political framework agreement. That's why they signed. I think they're very realistic. And my hope, as I said at the beginning of this episode, is that they should really work hard and be more active and proactive in pushing this political settlement to move forward so that we have a civilian-led government as soon as possible, because it's in their interest to have this.
What is impeding the formation of the government? Now you are saying that this issue, something, it takes time to resolve these five items in the framework agreement. So the country cannot wait to resolve all these 5 issues which we discussed just now. This.
Well,
So
I think the critical thing here is that the signatories are cognizant of the fact that they need more people to come.
they need more people to come.
Exactly. They are actually looking to have more supporters, more signatories, because the more signatories you have, you will guarantee that this might be successful.
So this is what is stopping
This
the
is what
military
is
from, not the implementation of the lengthy items of the framework agreement, which we discussed, the 5 points.
Yeah.
They are not waiting for this to be resolved. That, if I understood you well.
No. These things are parallel, because as of Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 8th, the process of dealing with these 4 issues will start.
Will start, and it will take time, as you said.
It will take some time. But then at the same time, efforts are also being exerted by General Burhan in particular.
To enlarge.
Exactly, to bring more people to
More
the process.
Once he gets to a point,
Yeah,
which you are always calling it the critical mass.
exactly.
Once then he will.
Then they will
More-
move forward.
more
And actually,
forward.
FFC Central Council is also pushing on this, and they are moving forward with these things. I think if the Justice and Equality Movement and SLM and Nawi joined, I think they will have enough.
They will reach the mass.
Exactly. That would be a critical mass to take the thing forward.
What is appropriate, the best in this, under this situation? This is very precarious situation and very sticky and very muddy atmosphere. What type of government, transitional government, you think? Some people, they talk about technocrats, but some people they criticize because technocrats, they lack the political skill, only technocrats. Some people, they say non-partisan. So what is the best government to be in the transitional period, the new transitional period?
Well, I think
what shape of the government?
I think, of course, it goes without saying that you need somebody with political experience,
Yes.
to be the prime minister and also to be a minister.
Okay.
But the problem is that for politicians to be part of government, they need to be coming through elections.
Or from parties.
No, but the mechanism we have seen this in the second government of Hamdok,
Yes.
when the political parties got into the government,
Yeah.
and then problems started to happen, because others were saying that these are people who were they divided the thing among themselves and all of that. Now we are talking about transition period which is quite short, and we are not expecting miracles from the prime minister or his minister during the transition. They should be concerned with very few things, with the ultimate objective of preparing the ground for elections.
For elections.
Exactly. That is why I'm not really very concerned about whether the government would be formed from technocrats or people with experience.
But not from parties.
No.
Definitely.
I am against political parties.
Any formation, including parties, is
To me, this is a no-go.
detrimental, very bad.
Exactly. The political parties should prepare themselves for elections.
And there are some neutral, some people, non-partisan, and politicians.
There
at that
are
time
people who are experienced, who are not
affiliated to any
exactly.
party.
There
no
are
political-
enough people. I don't think we have problems of finding people of this caliber.
This caliber.
Yes.
So you don't you
No, I am against. I am against
reject any formation.
Yeah.
So now to sum up just quickly, because this is a very important question, this issue about this. So you are saying that this is very interesting. What is the framework, the backbone of the framework which we discussed just now, the 5 points about the revision of Juba peace agreement, dismantling of the hostage regime, reform of the military and military and transitional justice and problem of the East. This, as if I understood you well, will not impede the process of forming a government.
No.
Non-partisan government.
It shouldn't.
Because this takes time.
Yes, these processes take time. And I see the point that...
The only point you are saying that just what is needed is to enlarge.
Yeah.
To invite others.
Exactly.
Especially the Menawi and Jibril.
That is right.
That might complete the
that is right.
critical
That's right. And I could see actually the point that has consistently been made by the FFC Central Council, that they need people who believe in the revolution and in the transition. And to me, this makes a lot of sense. You cannot bring somebody who will sabotage the process.
Yes, definitely.
It makes sense, you see. So if you are not pro revolution, if you are not pro transition, you should be excluded. I say this categorically. You see.
But those who are
But if anybody, like the Congress, the Popular Congress Party,
yes,
they made it very clear. We are pro transition. And they were part of the political framework agreement. There's no problem with that. I don't have any problem with
also the wide Islamic current, which is headed by Dr. Juduri. Juduri was imprisoned by the hostage regime so many times, a long time. Also, he's rejected, completely rejected. But he's definitely if I mention, some are moderate, like reform now, like Dr. Ghai Salah ad-Din. From the beginning, he was against the Salvation regime, and they took him out and deprived him of any privileges. Others imprisoned, like and Popular Congress, late Turabi was the longest prisoner in the prisons of the hostage regime.
Right.
So I think that if they enlarge it with fronts of people like this will not harm the process.
No.
Only what harms the process is those who have vested interest in the hostage regime.
Absolutely.
Either they are members of the hostage regime or they made fortune
out
of the hostage regime.
No, that's true. That is true.
That's very, very, very clear.
Yeah.
This is very good. Now I'm happy that you said something very important. I'm trying to emphasize this to the viewers, that the idea of, because some people are laughing because they say to achieve these goals of the framework, and if they want to it will take years, and the military will be ruling. It will continue. Now we are saying that the government can be formed without the completion of this.
No, they can go in parallel. We have to be realistic.
Okay.
We have to be realistic. Now the whole thing started in 2018. Now we are getting into the fourth year.
The fourth year.
And we hardly moved a few steps.
Yes.
We have to be realistic. These things will start, and they will, continue with us.
Yes.
And it might be the case that until the transition period is finished, and it's going to be 2 years, some things will have to continue into the next government. That's
right,
the elected government.
Correct.
This should be the understanding.
Yes, maybe the government, the foreign government, will be helpful to the reaching these items. If there is a government intact, taking care of, because now there is something which is masking the economy of the country, the people, the hardship, people facing hardships, unprecedented hardships.
Of course.
People, they fail completely to make ends meet. And now they are frustrated. They will be against any incumbent, whether it is FFC or military, they will be against it because it's something touching their own families and lives. So this is very important issue to form a government and to reach
Yeah.
That's very, very good.
That's right.
Okay, Professor Manzoor, let us move to another issue which is also alarming, very alarming. The Darfur. Last week or a few days ago, we heard about the municipality of the locality of Bilal, South Darfur. Before that, there are other confrontation, military, deadly, actually deadly confrontation, which is affecting the innocent civilian people who are already displaced. And there is another dimension which is very serious, and it was mentioned by the Deputy Supreme Council, General Hamiti, about the arrangement for invasion from beyond the borders of Sudan, from the west, from Chad and from Central Africa, until he orders the closure of the border between Central Africa and Sudan. So can you tell us about this, the eruption of the...
Well, you see, you know what happens in Darfur is really sad and very frustrating, because it's a recurrent thing. And it happens so many times, so much so that it becomes even predictable. The same kind of things happen in Western Darfur in 2021, in January 2021 in Jinena, in April 2021 in Jinena, in August and September in Jebel Moon, and then in August 2021 we had also the famous problem of Kolge in northern Darfur. Now, every time this kind of trouble happens, officials fly to the region, they spend a few days, they get back, they issue decisions of forming investigation committees, the general prosecutor goes there, and nothing happens. The public never knows what the results of those investigation committees are. We have never seen any report
of the investigation committees.
Absolutely. I think the Sudanese people have the right to know, because concealing the results of such reports in itself, to me, is one of the factors why these problems occur time and time again. You see? And I remember very well, I was on national TV with one of the former Sovereign Council members at Taishi, and I challenged him that you were part of the committee, you went there, you stayed for more than a week. As Sudanese citizens, you are entitled to know the results of that investigation. It never was
came
made
out.
No, it wasn't made public. So this is one thing. The other thing is that the traditional ways of dealing with these problems no longer function. Depending on the traditional mechanisms of dealing with these conflicts, don't work anymore, because the traditional authorities in most cases were party to these problems anyway. And this means that if you really want to deal with these problems, you have to apply justice. You have to take people who are accountable to justice. You cannot continue adopting the framework of diyat and arbitrate. It's not going to work. The problem is that the authorities at the highest level, they continue to do the same thing time and time again. And this is not going to work. And now what happened in Bilal last week will happen again. It's just a matter of time.
In other place.
In other place, or maybe in the same place.
But what about the important, the Hamiti, the deputy, was very angry. I saw him in the speech.
No, I have seen his
talking
speech.
about the native administration.
As
all of them, they are part of the
former regime. I saw that. It was very clear that he had some damning information. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone as far as saying that.
Yes,
That's one thing. And the serious thing is the thing that he mentioned also, that there were some people who trying to invade and change the government in Central Republic of Africa.
Yeah.
This is very serious.
This is very serious.
You see? And this also tells you the complexity of the situation. Darfur is a neighboring Chad, which is having problems. And yesterday there was an attempted coup in Chad. It was foiled. and then the Central Republic of Africa, which is also very volatile. And you have this, all these things working together
All border all this
to produce a very serious situation.
in Darfur.
Yes, and you already have people who are displaced, and then they get into these problems.
They're
Why
getting
they are displaced?
injury to insult
So
to injury.
exactly, precisely. So my point is that there should be a radical change in the way the government deals with these problems in Darfur in particular. There should be a change of policy.
Change your policy.
Absolutely, because since 2020 up to now, we have a lot of conflicts. Hundreds of people died. You know, properties were burned, and the government
Looted.
the government does the same thing, but it's not working. So something needs to be done
Needs
here,
to be
and
done.
I think the policy should be changed.
The policy should be changed.
Yeah, should be
Okay,
changed.
we'll discuss this in depth if we have time, because and if we have information, because it's something very serious and it will affect the whole country, not Darfur alone.
Of course.
It will spill over to different parts of the country.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. That's right.
If we go to the issue, we covered this all dimensions. Native administration, you said they have role to play. They did not play, or they played the other way around.
That's
they
right.
have the old regime supporters, still as pointed out by General Hamiti. You have all these, and plus the invasions from Sudan, from Darfur to Central, or vice versa, and Chad. Maybe the coup attempt. Tomorrow we'll hear that Sudan has some involvement in the coup attempt. Anyhow,
never know.
But let us move to another part of the country, which is the east. The east is really is in complete disarray, and people are confused. I myself, I am confused about who is minding the stores. Who is? Sometimes you listen, you see Tariq as a native administration leader, very strong leader. He has supporters. They come and shout and say slogans against component of the ruling. The other of Shah and the other. So what do you think about this the East turmoil?
Well, I am no less confused than yourself when it comes to the East. It is indeed a very critical problem, a very critical situation.
Yes.
And there are a lot of contradictions that are part of the whole scene. Now, the serious issue here is that what's happening in the East is going to polarize the society there. And that's the danger.
The danger.
The danger of it. Because people are divided. Of course, the East has problems. Everybody knows this. But the way some of the leaders are dealing with these problems is counterproductive, you know, and it's going to polarize the society because what's happening is divisive. Now, if we take the example of blocking the port that happened 2 years ago, it created a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It affected ordinary people, you know, and the implications of that closure or blockage are still there, you know.
Yes.
The port has not recovered yet. So it's getting complicated, and that is why I see that revising the Juba Peace Agreement, addressing the Eastern Tract thing, would dissipate, at least, if not completely solve the problem. It will contribute in at least addressing some of the concerns of the people in Eastern Sudan.
So the East track in Juba agreement,
Yeah.
is the main cause, maybe.
Yes, that is
What is happening now in the East.
that is true.
So it has to be taken out.
It has to
and
be
has to make a conference.
Yes, it has to be addressed because this would be one of the key steps to address the whole problem in the East.
Before taking out, people cannot sit.
No, it's very
it's
difficult.
also unfortunate that some people, some power centers, they started to attract some of the components of the East.
And that's why I'm saying that the whole thing that's happening in the East is serious, it's divisive, and it's going to create problems within the East itself, not the East vis-a-vis the country. even the component within the East itself, they will have serious problems.
So this must be addressed.
It has to be addressed.
So we are talking about two different parts. How policy should be changed in East and in Darfur.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is very, very, very important. People, they should think of the country and the two parts, Darfur, and we have seen Darfur from the last 20 years, what happened in Darfur, and the involvement of the international community, and now it will happen in the East if not
addressed quickly.
Well.
Yeah.
That is very good. Thank you, Professor Manzoor, Abdullah Manzoor. You have been very clear about what we are talking about and what we ask you about, because you are knowledgeable and you know the conflict and what is exactly happening, and as somebody who is impartial, as far as I know, you are completely impartial of any parties, of any affiliation to anywhere, but just for peace resolution. Thank you, and hope to see you next week in other issue. We hope things will move. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour, and we hope that you enjoyed or you made use of what we discussed about the important issues of Sudan. Hope to see you next week in a different issue of Dialogue Horizon. Bye.